They put them in books for you to read. So, in other words, I'm doing a little basic civics class today, because I know we got a lot of people out there, you on the Democratic side. When you come over in my channel, I want you to understand that you are dealing with people who are laser sharp and understand what they're talking about. This is not another ignorant channel where you're going to see some guy come on and he's talking about some emotional shit like a bitch, oh, he's racist, and he's sexist, and he's sexist, he's homophobic, xenophobic, and he squeezes on girls' ass, and 45 years ago, he was, doing X, Y, and Z. You're not going to get this in this channel. We're going to get down to the brass tacks of thing. We're going to look at the law, okay? Because this is what this is about. This is the law, okay? And you don't understand the law, you speaking in ignorance. And really, you shouldn't even be allowed to vote or allowed to engage in any kind of discourse on YouTube until you educate yourself properly in civics and understand what the fuck you're talking about, because most of you don't. What's the remedy? Okay, good question. Good question. Who is that? Was Lexus Spencer? Good question. That's the question. That's the question right there. What is the remedy? Remedy. Okay. Remedy is means a right. Remedy means a right. Okay. A right can only be enforced in the form of a contract. Contracts come in two forms: express and implied. An implied contract is based off of conduct. Actions speak louder than words. An express contract is something that you wrote down and you signed. All right. So you have to reduce everything you're doing to writing. Now, when you see a lot of people put out these, even me on my channel, I even talk about me for a second. I'm not going to use anybody else. I'm going to use me. When you see a lot of things I'm saying on my page, I'm talking about secure party and all that. That's just one form of something. That's just one form. And it comes in many different forms. But it has to be based off of certain principles. The principles is, the first principle you have to understand is, notice the agent is notice the principal, notice the principal is notice the agent. You have to give them notice. All right. You have to inform your public servants who and what you are and what you desire. And that needs to be in writing. Okay. You can't leave anything to chance. And it needs to be witnessed. In other words, you need to send it certified or registered mail, and you need to have it notarized. Because what's another fundamental principle in law? You have to have two witnesses. Where does that come from? Out of the Bible. A lot of this stuff. In this country, all your laws are based off the Bible and William Blackstone commentaries. You need to get your copy of William Blackstone commentaries and study it. That's where all your laws are based off of those two things. All right. Like, for instance, every 7 years your credit clears. Where you think that come from the book of Deuteronomy. Had to release a debtor every 7 years. This is just a typical example of something. Now, when you look at a legislative democracy, they're getting away from all that. That's why when you see Obama come in and legalize gay marriages, he's telling you right there who he is and everything. They didn't drifted away from the fundamental principles, but they didn't do it under a common law. They did it in the legislative democracy. The legislative democracy, demonocracy, okay, don't have nothing to do with the republic. And it's operating under what is called preliminary powers. I forgot the word. I'm not pronouncing it correctly. But it's the ultimate when the legislature, as long as they act within the ambit of their delegated authority, they are supreme. Another branch of government cannot intervene in anything they're doing. Same thing with the executive. A lot of times y'all say, well, Donald Trump is doing X, Y, and Z. As long as he's operating within the delegated powers, he's supreme. Another branch, he don't have to answer that branch of government. Like when they tried to get him to come in their courts, Donald Trump called them fake courts. He ain't got to come. He's the president. He's over the executive branch of government. He ain't got to come in a legislative court system. You have separation of powers. They have what's called military courts. Under his jurisdiction, we got courts too, motherfucker. All the branches of government got a court. How do we know your legislative got a court? Article 1, Section 8, Clause 9. They can constitute tribunals that are inferior to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court only have one court. Under Article 3, there's only one court. It's called the Supreme Court. All these other courts are legislative courts created by the legislature. But you only got one Supreme Court. And that, wait a minute, there is the Supreme Court of the United States of America, and then there's a U.S. Supreme Court. Remember earlier what I said? A U.S. Supreme Court is the Supreme Court they utilize as the appellate jurisdiction over Article 1 courts. The United States, the Supreme Court, it starts with the Supreme Court of the United States of America only adjudicates private rights. They don't have anything to do with the public because of separation of powers. They can't get involved with a political question. So obviously the only thing they can adjudicate is private rights. But you got to have the right status to go in there. You can't be a U.S. citizen. A U.S. citizen, look at the word again, United States citizen, is owned by the legislature, and separation of powers prevents the Supreme Court from even getting involved with that. So the first thing they're looking at when you come in that courtroom, when they arrest you, what do they do when they arrest you? They try to get your driver's license or your social security number. A social security number is issued by who? The legislature. So right there, that's the evidence, that's the prima facie evidence they need to show that you are within their jurisdiction. That's why when you get arrested, it's supposed to be when you get arrested, you're immediately supposed to be taken before a judge. But they don't do that. They fingerprint you, take your picture, get all your information, and then take you in front of a judge because they've already got established evidence that you're a U.S. citizen. And then once they got you behind them cages, you got to fight like a dog to get out and prove that you're not a U.S. citizen. You're fighting an uphill battle because all they're going to be saying is, what you mean you're not a U.S. citizen? You've been you've been taking benefits and privileges from us for the last 50 years. And now you're trying to talk about you ain't a U.S. citizen? Your actions speak louder than words. So we're not trying to hear what you're saying. We're looking at your actions. And this is why when you look at a lot of processes, they come around and say, well, that was done to me fraudulently. I wasn't given full disclosure of all the material facts of what constituted my status if I'm signing all these documents and you asking me if I'm a U.S. citizen and all this shit. This is what you need to understand because your public servants can't force you to do a motherfucking thing. So get this out of your mind. You ain't got to be afraid of these people. They need to be afraid of you. All right. When people are afraid of government, that's when you have a dictatorship. When government is afraid of people, that's when you have freedom. And they supposed to be afraid of you. You ain't supposed to be afraid of them. So this fear, anytime you're dealing with fear, that lets you know you're dealing with some evil force because the universe was created in love. So if love exists everywhere, where does fear come from? It has to be an illusion. That's why we have the acronym for fear, false evidence appearing real. Because fear is a phantasmagoria of the mind. It is a self-delusion. It is something that you're creating in yourself because you are a God. Okay, you have the power over all things. And the only way that you can trick a God is to make him think he's not a God. And that's why they had to put God outside of you. Now, the Luciferians understand this. This is why they don't really have a lot of respect for any of the branches of religion because they know they're man-made and they know they're not teaching y'all correctly. All right. You got to understand that what your power is. And the battle is for the mind. If they can get you to think a certain way, now they can control you. If they can get you to think that God is outside of you, if they can get you to think that God is outside of you, and then they can control the picture of it, and that you have to petition, even that ancestral worship stuff. I don't even get into that because you are utilizing something. That's a religion. You're utilizing something outside of yourself. Ultimate power rests in yourself, not inside of a dependency on something outside of yourself. Anytime somebody's asking you to go outside of yourself, you need to question it. You're dealing with mortals. And a lot of very religious-minded people, that's what they're going. That's even the Christians. Christians don't read the Bible because Jesus tells them the same thing. Luke 17:21. Look, you're not there nor here, but the kingdom of heaven is inside of you. John 10:34. Is it not written in your law? You're a God. Psalms 82:6. God tells you you're a God. Genesis 3:22. Look, the man has become as one of us. You were something called a man. And then you became something called one of us. And who is the us they talking about? Please don't say God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. They don't do that. All right. But you got to understand there's a power in you and you got to get rid of this fear. Because if you notice, Everything about these people is predicated on fear. Fear of the coronavirus. They keep you in a state of fear. And what is the Bible? Now, you Christians, y'all should know better, because the two things in that entire Bible that you warned about is doubt and fear. This is what faith is. And that's why I don't give a lot of credence to none of y'all claiming y'all Christians and y'all be walking around with these masks on, scared as fuck. Every time I step out the car, you scared as a motherfucker. You just, your whole life is just ruled by fear. And then you want to turn around and say, well, Jesus is coming and I'm depending on God or some shit like that. I don't get into any of that, because you ain't what you say you are. If you alkaline the body, it will withstand any type of thing that you're throwing at it. The body is the most miraculous thing ever created. And the remedy is to contact government. That's the remedy. You got to form a contract with government. That's the remedy. You got to have a contract with government. Anyway, this has been good. Passport is one way of doing it. I do think the state passport is one way, definitely, of informing them what your legal status is. That passport is, I believe, is well within those bounds. You can start with that. That's a good way to start, but I think you need to put some additional documentation with it. You got to learn how to write these people and explain your position, because the first thing they're going to do is they're going to interpret that you wanted to expatriate from the jurisdiction of the United States. They do some old stupid shit like, well, what country you from? And all this shit. Like, motherfucker, because the people work for federal government, they stupid as hell too. They only do what they told. So he's like, no, I'm not talking about United States of America, nigga. I'm talking about this legislative democracy under the Constitution it talks about, which in Washington, D.C., that you didn't franchise me in, is what's called a federal citizenship. It's the federal citizenship that you are getting away from, not the state citizenship. It's that federal citizenship that's fucking you up. The federal citizenship, it did have its purposes, okay, to protect black people, because a lot of the states, were racist and things like that. That was its original intent. Spirit of intent was to protect ex-slaves, in the states and everything, give them a form of citizenship because they didn't have a citizenship. But we didn't move past all of that. We moved past all of that. We moved past all of that. So, we can have a further discussion on it. Revocation of elect, definitely, though, those are all good. All of that, even rescission of, when you rescind a social security number, account number, because they even call it an account number, a closed account never closes. All they close in an account is for credits and debits. This is why when you contact the Social Security Administration and you tell them you want to get rid of the social security number, all they're going to tell you, well, stop using it. Because account don't never go away. But when you close it, it remains open for offset and adjustment. This is why in the secure party process, your social security number is used to discharge debt. But you don't do any more credits and debits to it.
New text message from Toy Eshin.
I don't know if people calling me. Child support. Yes, it does. Child support is a debt collection. That's in law books. I can pull that out for you. I had to pull that out and show y'all that. Or you go to attorney and ask, they'll tell you. Child support is, if they worth their grain of salt, it takes a debt collection. We are under. I was just listening to a guy speak. He was kind of admitting that we under like a debtor prison system, but they hiding that fact from you. The United States is a debtor, and the debtor cannot institute law. That is why you have other like the United Nations instituting policy within there, because the debtor can't institute law. We in receivership. So somebody has to dictate to us what we can do. And to a degree, everybody is correct when they say a lot of this election shit is a facade. I really
text message from two ladies and a brew.
I really think that Donald Trump still is trying to come in and change something. But a lot of y'all, y'all have a basis for what you're saying when you say, well, all this is a facade. I understand all that. I understand that really the Federal Reserve is running our monetary system. They're really in control of everything. And because we're a debtor country, we're $27 trillion in debt. That fact is always ignored, and it is the basis for everything that's happening in this country. Even why our court system is set up the way that it's set up, because we don't have real money.